Okay, we're with us reading screenwriter Trey Randle to Lie Amongst the Sugarcane action adventure best scene. We did for him. So this screenplay, tell us about this. What's the Sudan Civil War?
So the Sudanese Civil War was a conflict that obviously took place in Sudan, Africa, that extended about 3 or 4 decades or so. And during that process, there were countless numbers of young men who were forced to travel through the harsh wilderness of the Sudanese desert to get to safety wherever they could. My story takes place in Sudan with them getting to Kenya, but there are just different, avenues of freedom they could have reached during that process. But only half of the kids who made that trip made it successfully. Half of them did die during that trip. And that's pretty much where the story picks up at. There are a group of kids who were out in the field doing field work when their village was attacked, which is very common for the children who participated, were forced to participate in such an event. And when their village was destroyed, they were kind of stuck being orphans where they had to just survive in the wilderness on their own. And that's essentially the main plot point of To Live with the Sugar Cane.
It's an interesting story because it's obviously most of us, especially in the Western world, don't know about this, right? So you're kind of educating us as well.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you really don't hear about on a day-to-day basis. The only way I heard about it was through, school readings. We were kind of forced to read it. Well, I didn't read it in high school because, I was not the most, serious student at the time, but there were books you had to read in high school. When I got to college, there was another book we had to read called God Grew Tired of Us that also covered a group of kids who took that trek from Sudan to Kenya and eventually ended up in America. So yeah, you're right. It's not really something that you hear about. I think a lot of African stories in general really aren't things you hear about on a day-to-day basis in the West. And because of that, I just felt like it was a story I really wanted to tell.
So what is that? So that's what kind of motivated you to dive into it. I'm assuming you got to do a lot of kind of research and educate yourself to figure it out, I guess. Like what this
Yeah, there's a
core of the story is about.
A lot of reading, a lot of understanding Sudanese culture, a lot of, like you said, studying, reading a book. God Grew Tired of Us. There's actually a video or a movie that's based on that book that I watched at one point. But just a lot of studying. I thought there was a lot of capacity for emotional potential there, just based on the nature of the event. And when you combine all those things together, the adventure component of it, considering the fact I am an adventure, action adventure writer, those are things that are very appealing to me.
So what's your experience kind of writing this script until like before like what's your experience writing screenplays? You said you weren't the best student and then so but it seems like you self-educate yourself.
Yeah, when I was younger, I would say I wasn't the best student, but thankfully I matured a little bit, and that kind of, manifest in my love for writing, storytelling, the whole process of it, going back and making edits, fine-tuning my stories, fine-tuning my scripts, doing research, trying to become more educated on things that I probably wasn't the most, educated on to begin with. And, I didn't go to school for screenwriting. I went to school for multimedia journalism. So there is a writing component to that. I do have a writing background, but it's a completely different type of writing compared to screenwriting. And I kind of just, came to the conclusion I like storytelling, I love writing. Well, why don't I just try the screenwriting journey and see where it takes me? Let me, study, read material, read some of the masters, see how they do things, see how I can, manipulate the rules a little bit. I don't want to be too formulaic. I don't want to be too, just I don't know, black and white as far as my writing. I want to be able to kind of skirt around those rules a little bit, but the main thing being able to tell a coherent story. And those are the things that kind of, interest me that kind of brought me into the screenwriting stratosphere.
So you like screenwriting? Like are you like is it you hooked in? You're gonna write more scripts?
I'm hooked in. I can't really go too long without writing. Even when I kind of fall off my structure, my pattern, I kind of find myself, okay, I need to get back into swing of things. I need to write something. I need to tell some sort of story. I do love screenwriting. I do have a book or two that I'm planning on writing in the future. But honestly, I just love storytelling in general. I love weaving themes into a story. I love conveying emotions, being able to draw out emotions in my characters and from the readers slash writers.
Gotcha. And so what was like this must have been a difficult process because you gotta have the background research, but then you also have to kind of find your kind of lead characters, so to speak. Are these real people, or did you kind of like are they people that you can kind of like you made from your own imagination in this kind of
They're definitely original characters. There's some
yeah,
inspiration considering, the events that happen and some of
yeah.
the journeys that some of these children went on. So I did take some things that were real based on true events, some things that actually happened. But for the most part, these are original characters, original names, original personalities, at least to my knowledge. And I just wanted to create something new.
So Omar is kind of your main character.
He's the main character, yes, and his brother is also, I guess you would consider him also one of the main protagonists.
Yeah.
I do love parallel storytelling. That is a common, trope I use in some of my stories. So we're telling the story of both Amari and his brother and how they split from the beginning and they go through their parallel journeys and they come together at the end. So yeah, he's my main character. Yeah. Now there's a group of kids who are with him throughout the journey, but they're more side characters.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're like, yeah, they meet the ensemble, right? So they're
Mhm.
kind of working together, right?
Correct. Yep.
So where does Omar spawn from? Does he come, is he a version of you, or where does this kind of character come from?
Uh, I think a lot of my characters, not all of them, but a lot of them kind of represent myself in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not myself where I am right now, but things I've been through in the past, who I was in the past, being someone who lacked confidence, someone who failed to live up to his parents' expectations, someone who wasn't really to survive in the world on his own when I was much younger. And you take all those components and you throw them into a character who's kind of forced into this dire situation. I thought there, like I said earlier, there was a lot of potential there for emotional, storytelling with some of the things I've been through, with some of my old personality traits, and some of my current personality traits. But yeah, he's definitely inspired by me, um, more so when I was younger than who I am right now.
Gotcha. And so like you want these guys to succeed, right? You want them to get to
Mhm.
America, right?
Yep. Yeah, I wanted them to get to just any safe haven in general. I chose America because I've heard stories in the past. Like I said, the book I mentioned earlier, God Grew Tired of Us. At the end of that story, they told the assimilation from the Sudanese children into America and how they struggled to, adapt to American culture. Now, that wasn't what this story that I wrote was about, so I didn't get too much into that. But them getting far away from, their war-torn country, coming to America was definitely a component of like the story that I wanted to tell.
Gotcha. So what's next for you? What do you want to do? Do you want to are you writing another screenplay right now or
I am. I'm currently in a process of writing another screenplay. It's I'm like I said earlier, I'm more of an action adventure writer, but this one's more on the horror side of things, heavily inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. I kind of fell in love with some of his works recently, and I wanted to tell a story about a group of kids in the inner city who are encountering Lovecraftian type events and how they deal with that. So that's one that I'm working on. I wrote another script that was an action adventure script that I felt like I had too much to say about that topic to confine it to a 120-page script. So I do think that's one I'm going to flesh out and turn into a novel.
okay.
So yes, I have a script that I'm finishing up right now, the grounded Lovecraftian tale, and I do have a novel that I'm beginning the initial outlining process on.
Gotcha. So this is something that like what was your motivation to send to festivals like ours? Just to get like feedback, just kind of get some exposure?
Get feedback, get my name out there, get some exposure to see how the work that I've done stacks up against other people in the same genre. So, and I've heard good things about your film festival and the feedback and the people who do win, what they're able to get from that festival, such as
So
podcast interviews.
Yeah.
I know you guys offer different prizes or different things you can, partake in if you do win, such as, pitching, trailers, joining group chats, things like that.
So action adventure, is that sort of your genre that you're gonna write?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Action adventure is my baby. Growing up, I've always been enamored with action adventure stories. Whether it be video games, I'm a big anime slash manga fan, especially the battle anime, and 95% of those are going to be action adventure. I do love the idea of the journey being the story or the journey being the test, and that's something that I think really comes out until I'm under Sugarcane.
So yeah, it's something that like this story is more than an action adventure. There's like a human interest. There's it's a history. It's like there's a lot going on, right? Besides it
Mhm.
being action.
Yeah. And recently, the emotional response that I had with a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, kind of, growing up, I obviously watched a lot of action movies, a lot of action adventure movies, but the emotional component wasn't as integral in some of those, movies as compared to some of the ones I've seen recently that have inspired me. So a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, the emotional response I had to that kind of made it click in me. Okay, I need to focus more on the emotional tales of my characters. I need to focus more on weaving those thematic elements so I can get that payoff at the end, so I can get that emotional payoff at the end, so I can make the story work.
So you live in Kansas City?
I do. Yep. Born and
How,
raised.
I was Kansas, born and raised. So does that make you a Chiefs fan then?
I get a lot of heat for this. I'm actually a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I've been a
How does
Pittsburgh
that happen?
Steelers fan since the first grade. The first little league football team I played for were like it was like a local team called like the South
Yeah,
Suburban Steelers. But
yeah.
I'm in the first grade. I play for the Steelers, and I see the Steelers on TV. It's like, oh, I quote unquote play for them. So it's kind of been my favorite team since, and I've been pretty loyal since.
Wow, even after the three Super Bowl rings and everything that's happened with you guys?
See, that's the thing. I feel like I can't join the bandwagon now. I've been, not a Chiefs hater, but just not a Chiefs fan up until this point. I feel like I can't really jump on the bandwagon now.
Oh, okay. You're loyal. You're a loyal guy then.
I'm loyal. I'm loyal. Even though, my team has caused me some pain in the past, I'm pretty loyal, yeah.
Yeah, and gotta get a new coach and everything like that. So is there like a screenwriting or film industry there? Like, are you a part of it or?
I'm actually not a part of it, but Kansas City is an up and coming, film community. I've It's growing. I'm not sure the particulars of it because, like I said, I'm not involved in the community. I would like
Yeah,
to be involved in the community. I do know that, for example, the first season of The Last of Us on HBO, a significant chunk of one of those episodes was shot
yeah,
here in Kansas City. There's just I don't know a lot of potential here in Kansas City. It's cheap, buying things here, living here. It's a lot cheaper than it is out west. So I do know that's played into the boom of the film industry in Kansas City.
So yeah, I like your story. It's like you said, it's kind of has that parallel journey, and it's sort of like one's a good, one's bad, and you kind of like seeing this. I think you described in the blog interview survivor's guilt, right?
Mm-hmm,
It's an
mm-hmm.
interesting theme. It's an interesting kind of element, right? Where like I'm sure a lot of people in war and in situations they have that, right? Where like, why am I
Mm-hmm.
the one alive? Why are you know what I mean? Why are these people dead? It's just sometimes just luck, right? Yeah,
Exactly. Especially when you look at like my main character,
yeah,
Amari, and how he is just shy, timid, can't really go out and be on his own, constantly
yeah,
disappointing his parents by not doing the right thing, like getting home on time, being safe when his father's made it known there are like there's violence happening out there. We're in the middle of a war. We need you home on time. And he can't even do that. So you have that. And I just I don't know. He's it's I feel like it was the right choice. I feel like, the fact that he wasn't quote unquote built for that type of environment at that time was the perfect crucible for him, to evolve into the person that he needed to be to complete his story.
Well, man, I think it's a great story. I think you're on your way, and I wish you the best of luck with your writing, and why don't we talk again when you write your next script and we showcase it again?
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're the best. Bye.